Coming up on tonight's broadcast, Romney wins big in Florida, the US sets a withdrawal date for Afghanistan, and Facebook files to go public. All that and more right here on KBVR.
Good evening and welcome to your Wednesday night edition of the Beaver News. We're glad to have you with us. I'm McKenna Koon.
I'm Mackenzie Allen.
And I'm Cassady Gilroy. Oregon State University is now officially home to the Swislaw National Forest headquarters, reports Cartier Cosber of the Daily Barometer. The headquarters is responsible for the 63,000-acre national forest that stretches from Tillamook to Coos Bay along the Oregon coast. This decision was publicized last week. Corvallis was chosen as the ideal location because it is central to Swislaw's district offices, as well as being within driving distance of the regional office in Portland. Additionally, OSU's strong commitment to forestry and the management and research of provides an ideal collaborative environment. Forest Supervisor Jerry Ingersoll stated, quote, "We are incredibly excited to move in with the Corvallis Forestry Sciences Lab. It is a wonderful opportunity to collaborate with researchers and the university," end quote. The new headquarters are located next to PV Hall, home to OSU's Department of Forestry, and is open to all those looking for more information, as well as having forest permits and recreational passes.
Tomorrow night, as part of OSU's Critical Questions lecture series on campus, Stanford chemistry professor and playwright Carl Gerasi is going to be lecturing on his experiences in both science and the theater. Gerasi was one of the inventors of the birth control pill, inspiring him to write over a dozen creative pieces on the subject. He also holds the National Medal of Science, which President Nixon gave him back in 1973 for his work on the pill. If you've got any questions about the event, contact Felicia Phillips in the English department. And if you want to check out Gerasi's lecture tomorrow, it's from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the LaSalle Stewart Center, and it's free.
Finding it difficult to get around campus due to disability? Rest assured, the Able Student Alliance of Oregon State University has your back. As reported by Kristen Pogmeyer of the Daily Barometer, the ASA filed 10 official complaints with the Office of Equity and Inclusion related to some of the access areas and parts of travel on campus. Among the locations included were the Milam Hall and Gilfillan Auditorium ramps and the Linus Pauling Science Center and Furman Hall entrances. While many of the buildings in question are several decades old and have yet to be renovated to become ADA regulated, some of the complaints are directed towards locations that have either been recently reconstructed or renovated. Jeffrey Evans, president of the ASA, commented that, quote, "These problems could have been avoided if the university had consulted ASA before completing the projects. We filed complaints in 2009, and I appealed 3 of them to the chancellor and asked that a hearing be held," end quote. According to Evans, he did not receive a response. Angela Gomez, the interim executive director of Equity and Inclusion, could not comment on the complaints due to issues of confidentiality, but stated, quote, "Our office investigates the complaint, determines what the facts are, and decides whether there are any violations of university non-discrimination policies. If the complaint is formal, we issue a written determination and also work to correct any problems."
Last night, the Associated Students of OSU, or ASOSU, held a special forum to talk about changing student government at OSU. By the end of the meeting, 3 pieces of legislation were passed, including a bill to reinstate the $75,000 funding for membership in the Oregon Student Association, which was passed despite a presidential veto. As reported by the Daily Barometer's Evan Anderson, ASOSU Vice President Soko Eighth also reminded those at the meeting last night that Oregon State Congress is going to enter session soon and suggested lobbying for more funding for OSU.
In the ever-growing list of possible cures to cancer, researchers at Oregon State University may now be able to add natural chlorophyll, so reports Michael Mendez of the Daily Barometer. The study involved testing on over 12,000 rainbow trout who have certain liver enzymes that are similar to a human's. During the study, the trout were fed chlorophyll for 3 days, then were given both chlorophyll and carcinogen for 4 weeks, and finally just chlorophyll for 3 days afterward. Carcinogen is any substance that has proven to be a component in cancer. Results have been positive, with outcomes showing that with smaller doses of the cancerous carcinogen cells, the naturally formed chlorophyll was able to remove them completely from the fish's system. Tammy McCriston, a research assistant working at the Linus Pauling Science Center and the study's first author, said, quote, "Most studies are conducted with chlorophyllin, a synthetic substitute that has also been shown to be effective in certain treatments, but creates possible side effects that natural chlorophyll has not been shown to cause."
OSU students and researchers have utilized the research ship known as the RV Wakoma since 1975 for their research on marine dead zones, climate change, fisheries, and other oceanographic topics. But Vinay Ramakrishnan of the Daily Barometer reports that because of the price to operate it, the Wakoma went on its last official trip in November, when it carried a research group to map the Cassady subduction zone. OSU's Marine Superintendent Damian Bailey says the ship will return to Newport on Friday, February 21st, and a retirement ceremony will be held in March.
Oregon State University continues to grow in size, all according to a plan known as the Campus Master Plan. And, as reported by James Shreve of the Daily Barometer, it is now in the final stage of this 12-year building and development plan. According to the plan's mission statement, it's designed to, quote, "identify guiding principles and policies and establish a conceptual framework for the long-range planning of OSU that will direct physical development over the approximate 10 to 12-year planning horizon," end quote. 3 of the major construction projects were recently completed by the beginning of the fall quarter: the Linus Pauling Science Center, the Hallie Ford Center, and the International Living Learning Center. Currently, a new agricultural sciences pavilion is being constructed, and a new College of Business building begins construction during the summer. Earlier this year, OSU also requested that a large classroom building and a new residential hall be placed into the plan. Mark McCambridge, the Vice President for Finance and Administration, said, quote, "There really isn't any place to go. OSU can't take many more students without putting its students in the position of not being able to get the classes that they need to progress. This would be unfair. That is the balancing act of it all." We're taking a short break, but don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we have a sports update and a look at your local forecast. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Beaver News, live on KBVR. Last night, Republican presidential hopeful Mitt Romney burst back into the race as frontrunner after winning the Florida state primary with 46% of the vote. After a tough loss to former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich in South Carolina, Romney's campaign took control in Florida, pouring huge amounts of money into negative ads attacking Gingrich. But Gingrich still pulled in 32% of the votes, coming in second behind Romney. CNN reports that the other 2 possible nominees, Ron Paul and Rick Santorum, came in with significantly less votes, Santorum with 13% and Paul with 7%. Despite Gingrich's loss in Florida, though, he'll keep powering on for, as he put it, for what could be 6 more months. Now, whether it will actually be that long is still up in the air, depending on money, for one, and how the next few primaries go in Nevada, Maine, Colorado, and Minnesota. But during his speech last night, Gingrich supporters stood by their candidate, holding up signs saying 46 states to go. We now go to Cassady for a look at our local forecast.
Good evening, Covals. My name is Cassady Gilroy, and I shall bring you weather tonight. Tonight, expect to see some clear skies with a low of 32 degrees at night. Thursday, we have some sunny skies with a high of 52 and a low of 32 degrees at night. Friday, we have even more sunny skies for you with a high of 54 degrees and a low of 30 degrees at night. Saturday, expect to see even more sun with a high of 54 degrees and a low of 30 degrees at night again. And finally, Sunday, the sunny skies will be carrying on with a high of 54 degrees and a low of 36 degrees. That's a 5-day outlook. Have fun in the sun. Back to you guys in the studio.
Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta announced earlier today that the United States and NATO will end all combat missions in Afghanistan by 2013, saying, quote, "Hopefully by mid to the later part of 2013, we'll be able to make a transition from a combat role to a training, advise, and assist role," end quote. CNN is reporting that Afghan security forces are now above 300,000 and are expected to grow to above 350,000 in the next year. The United States will continue to withdraw troops to a total of only 68,000 by the end of 2012, from over 100,000 after a 33,000 troop surge last year.
For all you Facebook lovers out there, which is pretty much, well, everyone now, the social networking site is going public. CNN reports that Facebook is filing paperwork for an initial public offering, or IPO, which means that it can officially enter the stock market. In becoming an IPO, Facebook is trying to raise $5 billion in its offering, which would make it by far the largest global IPO by an internet-focused company. But it wouldn't be the biggest IPO because it would still land behind those monster ones like Visa, which raised over $19 billion in 2008, and General Motors, which raised $18 billion last year.
After filing for bankruptcy in November of last year, American Airlines announced today that they will be cutting 13,000 of their current 88,000 jobs in order to stay afloat. CNN is reporting that maintenance operations will lose 4,600 jobs, that more than 4,000 additional ground worker jobs will be eliminated, as well as 2,300 flight attendant jobs. Management will be reduced by 1,400 employees. Pilots and first officers will see the fewest cuts, with a reduction of only 400. In the announcement, Thomas Horton, CEO of American Airlines, said that his company will need to save more than $1.25 billion annually in labor costs and reduce costs in each work group by 20%, adding that, quote, "We will end this journey with many fewer people, but we will also preserve tens of thousands of jobs that would have been lost if we had not embarked on this path."
2 passenger rail cars headed for Chicago jumped the tracks early this morning near Ann Arbor, Michigan. Amtrak said the train made contact with a vehicle at a public highway crossing, causing the engine to turn on its side and the first 2 cars of the train to derail. However, according to CNN, there were no life-threatening injuries from the accident.
Following the shooting at least 7 sea lions in Washington state waters, the environmental group Sea Shepherd Conservation Society has offered a $10,000 reward for information that leads to conviction of those responsible. Officials announced yesterday that 6 protected California sea lions, an endangered Steller sea lion, and a harbor seal have been found dead since December 1st. Though no arrests have been made yet, CNN is reporting that the fine for shooting a sea lion could be as much as $20,000.
Don Cornelius, the founder of the popular show Soul Train, was found dead in his home in Los Angeles last night of what is believed to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. Cornelius founded Soul Train in 1970, which became a huge success and ran for another 37 years with huge guest stars like Marvin Gaye, the Jackson 5, Stevie Wonder, and Whitney Houston.
Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, who has been under house arrest in Great Britain for the past year, appeared at a United Kingdom Supreme Court today to contest his extradition to Sweden. CNN reports that the extradition request is not related to WikiLeaks, but to allegations that he sexually assaulted 2 women in 2010. The prosecution is set to present their case tomorrow, though a decision is not expected for several weeks. Attorneys for Assange have said that they will take the case all the way to the European Court of Human Rights if they have to. Even though he is unable to leave the country and has an electronic monitoring bracelet watching his every move, Assange is set to voice a character on an upcoming episode of The Simpsons. We're heading into our final break of the evening. We'll have more of your national and international stories when we return. Stay tuned, you won't want to miss it.
Welcome back to the Beaver News right here on Channel 26. As reported by CNN, officials are currently monitoring a remote Alaskan volcano that could potentially erupt and launch an ash cloud that could hinder intercontinental flights. Satellite data initially detected the eruptive activity of Mount Cleveland, which is located on the Aleutian Islands, southwest of mainland Alaska. The Alaska Volcano Observatory commented, quote, "A new lava dome has been observed in the summit crater. There have been no observations of ash emissions or explosive activity during this current lava eruption," end quote. Alaskan airspace is home to 90% of air freight traffic from Asia to Europe and North America. This means that hundreds of flights with more than 20,000 passengers fly through Anchorage's airspace daily, and if there was an eruption, these flights will be rerouted or cancelled. Mount Cleveland's most recent significant eruption occurred in 2001, resulting in ash clouds as high up as 7.5 miles above sea level, as well as a lava flow which harmlessly reached the sea.
The United Nations announced earlier today that an International Atomic Energy Agency team would be returning to Iran at the end of the month, following a 3-day visit this week that both sides are acknowledging as positive. CNN is reporting that the 6-member delegation arrived in Tehran shortly after the European Union imposed new sanctions on Iran aimed at cutting off funding to the Islamic Republic's nuclear program. Though Iran is denying the accusation, many Western nations believe that the Middle Eastern country is trying to develop nuclear weapons. Of the scheduled visits, IAEA Director General Yukiya Amano said, quote, "We are not very sure whether Iran has declared anything, and therefore we are not very sure that everything stays in peaceful purpose. In addition, we have information that Iran has engaged in activities related to the development of nuclear weapons. Therefore, we need to clarify."
In light of increasing road accidents, the National Transportation Safety Board called Tuesday for a nationwide ban on the use of all functions in a cell phone device while driving. As reported by CNN, this would also apply to hands-free devices, though devices installed in the vehicle itself by its manufacturer are allowed. According to a study released last week by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, approximately 13.5 million drivers are on a handheld phone while driving. The study also concluded that approximately 3,092 roadway fatalities last year involved distracted drivers, though this number may be much higher. Currently, few laws govern cell phone usage. 35 states ban text messaging while driving, 30 states ban cell phone use by novice drivers, and only 10 ban all use of a handheld cell phone device. The ban proposed by the NTSB is only a recommendation at this point, but chairwoman of the board, Deborah Hersman, said, quote, "Needless lives are lost on our highways, and for what? Convenience? Death is convenient. So we can stay more connected? A fatal accident severs that connection."
CNN is reporting that following a soccer game today in Egypt, riots broke out, resulting in the death of 73 individuals. Officials are unsure if the riot started in direct response to the game or because of political unrest, as protesters in Cairo chanted, "Down with military rule," and "Tomorrow we come, we take the military down," reports CNN. In addition to the 73 dead, health officials are reporting 1,000 people injured, 150 of them critically, primarily with deep cuts and concussions. The police force is also under scrutiny as many believe they failed to act soon enough, with one bystander saying, quote, "The police stood there watching and the ambulances arrived late. I carried several dead fans in my arms."
Approximately 70 people were killed in Syria early today as internal conflicts continue, reports CNN. Syria has been in a state of uprising since last year in protest of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's regime. Protesters and government forces alike have been violently retaliating against each other as growing pressure is placed upon the president to step down from his rule. At this time, Syria is dangerously close to approaching a civil war as a rebel group known as the Free Syrian Army, composed of defected military personnel, had begun offensive maneuvers. UN Security Council members met with al-Assad but failed to reach an agreement. The Arab League, a regional organization of 22 Arab states, have also attempted negotiations to no avail. Syrian Ambassador Bashar Jafari said that Syria is, quote, "the victim of a systemic campaign to distort facts. Syria is going through decisive challenges in its history. We want the stage to be through the will of our people, not the will of anyone else," end quote. According to the local coordination committees, at least 7,100 people, including 461 children, have been killed since the start of the uprising last March. We now go to Mary for a look at sports.
Thanks, Cassady. In Pac-12's men basketball, California and Washington are tied with a 1-game lead over Oregon and Colorado. With only 5 conference road games left, the Pac-12 winner will depend on how each team does on the road. In tomorrow's matchups, Oregon is at Utah, UCLA is at Washington, Oregon State is at Colorado, and Oregon State is at California. This week in Pac-12 swimming has Cal at USC on Friday. On Saturday, Stanford is at USC, and Washington State will be going against Idaho on the road. In wrestling, Oregon State takes on Oklahoma, and Stanford will face off against the Utah Valley on Friday. The Wrestling Collegiate Open is on Saturday. And in gymnastics on Friday, Arizona is at Texas, Arizona State is at Utah State, and Oregon State is at Washington. In club sports, we take a look at the bass fishing team has made some growth from 8 to 14 members since it was founded in 2009, reports Katie Karcher of the Daily Barometer. The bass fishing team competes against 40 other Division I schools for a chance to win some money for their school or club. If the team places in the top 5, they could win anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000. In a tournament, each team goes out to the water with professionals who monitor, and then they weigh in 5 fish per team. The team with the largest fish wins. After the weigh-in, the fish are released. They even have Civil Wars. Oregon State was able to beat Oregon fall term and to tie up their Civil War series. They are hoping to continue their winning streak against the Ducks this upcoming spring. Finally, a look into the NBA. The Trailblazers play the Charlotte Bobcats tonight. Currently, the Blazers are 12-9 in the regular season, and Charlotte is 3-19. The Blazers are coming off a loss over the Utah Jazz in Utah on Monday. Nicholas Batum is expected to miss the next 2 games after Tuesday's MRI showed a bruised knee. Initially, there were concerns about not being able to participate in the on the French Olympic team in London this summer, but Batum is expected to be just fine.
That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you for joining us and have a good rest of your evening.